Kokoblel, Tamlel, Ramlel, Danel, Ezekiel, Barakajal, Asael or Azazel, Amaros, Batarul, Ananel, Zakil, Samsapil, Saterel, Chirel, Jomjael, Sariel. These are their chiefs of tens. Here we learn that there were a total of 200 angels who descended from the heavens to lay with the mortal women, and that their landing was upon the summit of Mount Hermon. We also learn that this all took place in the times of Jared, the father of Enoch, and a sixth generation descendant of Adam and Eve.
Hmm.
Unfortunately,
Sixth generation descendant of Adam and Eve. You know what's crazy? I like doing this like this because when I'm doing my research and I'm putting two and two together, it's kind of like, yo, you would think that it goes in the order that we're taught, but we're taught in a fucked up order and with lies. Twist to it, they hold back, they add to it, they take from it, right? But me doing my research, putting it like this, it's kind of like it'll come into place if you really pay attention because it's like a puzzle. It's like decoding. I don't know how to code, but it's like decoding.
I cannot be certain about the pronunciation of the names of each of the angels, and depending on the translation or version of the Book of Enoch, the names can be spelled differently or appear entirely different altogether. However, the relevance of each angel's name does not appear to affect the Book of Enoch in any conceivable way, and it would appear that the naming of the angels was merely the original author's method of giving some character or significance to these particular watchers, who are described as the chiefs, and possibly the lieutenants of Samjaza.
We're writing a new story right now. We have to, because the evidence no longer supports.
Chapter 7 continues with the unfolding of the Watchers' plan, as we see them take the mortal women as wives. The text tells us, "And all the others together with them took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one. And they began to go in unto them, and to defile themselves with them. And they taught them charms, and enchantments, and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants." There is no indication that the women consent to the advances of the angels, or whether they are taken by force, but it would perhaps not be so difficult for them.
So that means that these angels went against their will. To this day, they don't know if it was against their will or if it wasn't. That's what's crazy. So that the women agreed to do this or didn't agree to do this. Hmm. That right there, I'm about to do a little more research because you see, I like rewatching these videos like this because you catch what you miss. Like, even though I know I don't have people right now watching, like, listen, stuff like this really teaches you. Go ahead, I'm gonna put it back. All right, so let's keep watching.
The angels to deceive the women into sleeping with them. In any case, we are told that the watchers defiled themselves with the women, suggesting they engaged in multiple sexual debaucheries and moral turpitudes. But interestingly, it would seem that the watchers did not return to heaven after, but instead stuck around for a bit, perhaps intrigued by the mortals or otherwise infatuated with their beauty. They began to teach them charms and enchantments, the cutting of roots, and gave them.
See, it talks about it on here. According to this missing chapter in the Bible, the falling angels were the ones that taught mankind witchcraft, allegedly. Allegedly.
Knowledge of plants. Here it can be interpreted that the Watchers taught the mortals the use of magic, that which was forbidden knowledge, and not the sort of thing that God had ever intended for man to wield. The charms and enchantments are unfortunately not specified in the text, but they appear to contribute to the earlier remark of the Watchers being defilers, perhaps defiling mankind's innocence with the practice of what might have become witchcraft or sorcery. We are then told more of the sin that would come to have greater repercussions on the earth, and that was the conceivement of the children between the Watchers and the mortal women. We are told, and they became pregnant, and they bare great giants, whose height was 3,000 ells,
Damn.
who consumed all the acquisitions of men, and when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind.
See, and that's what I was talking about yesterday, how these angels did what they did with the humans, and that's how the giants came about. So it's crazy that these missing chapters that they took out out the Bible, all these books and all that they took out the Bible explains a lot, and it puts two and two. And I understand why they took it out. I understand why they took it out. They didn't want us to. They didn't want us to figure it out. But like I said before, the Bible is like a puzzle. You have to sit here and put it together. You have to sit here and decode it to understand the messages, understand where what time things really happen. Like, it's crazy. Like, you have to be like a detective and really do your research because of the way everything is put in there too. Like, it took me a minute to figure out a lot of these chapters, and I'm still trying to figure out a lot of these goddamn chapters. I'm sorry to say it like that, because the Bible is like a puzzle, and it's got so many codes in it, so many messages. It's kind of like, damn, who would have thought about that, right? And I always wonder, like, where the witches really come from? Like, that the devil really did the devil really make them? Do they really, is the devil really their boss? Like, if y'all ever watched Sabrina the Teenage Witch and stuff like that, like, yo, I really did have questions. And like, it's crazy to find out later on, now that you're older, like, yo, God's angels taught them this.
Here we are told that the women gave birth not to regular babies, but instead bulbous beasts that were as tall as 3,000 ells, and not without a temper. These giants, thought to be the Nephilim, were monstrous and had insatiable appetites, so much so that we are told here that they consumed all the acquisitions of men, most likely their cattle. When the food ran out, the Nephilim turned violent and began to consume mankind themselves. So disastrous were the Nephilim that no one was able to keep them in check, as they ran amok on the earth, more savage than anything that had preceded.
It's crazy, right? Because they said David beat Goliath with the sling. And my biggest question was, did he really beat Goliath with the sling?
them. Chapter 7 concludes by telling us that mankind were not the only victims of the Nephilim's rage, as we are told, and they began to sin against birds, and beasts, and reptiles, and fish, and to devour one another's flesh, and drink the blood. Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones.
I was able to trade this coin from Carvana for.
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
Dire, to say the least, and this is before God has. The consequences of the Watcher's actions are dire, to say the least, and this is before God has even intervened. The Nephilim instead can be seen as an effect of karma, and also a caution that bad things will eventually take shape in one's life should they sin. The Watchers were probably not expecting to produce such monstrous creatures, and sought only the short-term gratification of their needs. But the story seeks to show us that everything has a price. While Samjaza is seen to consider the ramifications of sinning He only considers the consequences his actions will earn from God, and omits the earth altogether. In this, the Watchers demonstrate arrogance, and likely believe themselves to be so above man that they do not care about the repercussions that the mortals then have to sustain. The Nephilim in this sense then become man's problem, as the Watchers do not claim ownership of them, nor do they take fatherly responsibility for the creatures they have spawned. Their impetuous
And if we're how can I say it? If we were made from God and these people were meant to watch over us, I can understand God's fury. That's the crazy part. But why hide these chapters from us? Why confuse us for so long? What was y'all searching for? What was y'all looking for? Allegedly.
actions are even denounced by the earth itself, where the Watchers are deemed as lawless ones. Considering the appetites of the Nephilim, I do not think it is out of the realm of possibility to suggest that they too try to consume the Watchers,
Hmm.
divine or not, and that here the Watchers may have come to see the folly of their actions.
So basically, giving birth to these giants was their karma. It was the karma of the Watchers. And you know what's crazy? I've heard about the Watchers growing up. I just never understood because it never really got broken down. There's so many stories that we've heard growing up that we really never understood because of the way people talk about the Bible, talk about history, talk about everything. Why not just be honest about it? What is they so scared of?
In fact, it is uncertain whether the Watchers were really able to enjoy Earth thereafter, nor whether they themselves were even strong enough to oppose the creatures that they had fathered. It seems unlikely that they were a match for the Nephilim, considering the description that goes into the creatures, those that are such ravenous creatures that they even turn cannibal and start fiending for each other's flesh and blood.
Oh crap.
Chapter 8 of the Book of Enoch tells us more about what the Watchers taught mankind whilst they were on Earth, and how they went about with their corruption. We are told of Azazel, a Watcher who taught men to make swords, knives, and shields, breastplates.
So for those that had the same question that I had growing up, and the same question that I had, years back, like, yo, how did mankind learn how to make weapons? Like, who taught them? Who gave them the idea? And if this is true, it answers the questions that we had because of the holes and the loopholes and all that stuff that they did when it comes to putting these stories out in the public. It's crazy. It kind of fills in the holes. If this is true.
And made known to them the metals of the earth, and the art of working them, and bracelets, and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and all colouring tinctures. Despite not being the leader of the Watchers, much of the condemnation in the fallout is reserved for Azazel, who we later learn is pursued by the Archangel Raphael with the utmost prejudice. Perhaps because, unlike
And we all know about Raphael. And it's crazy. I heard about this angel, Ezekiel, whatever, however you say his name, but I've heard him throughout shows. That's the crazy part. Damn. So this is the angel that allegedly showed mankind how to make swords, how to, make lipstick, how to dress and do all this stuff. But why did he do it? Did he do it to stir up? Did he do it to, prepare them? Did he do it to save them? Did he do it to, why did he do it? If man wasn't supposed to be at war, why did he do this? Why did these angels do what they do? What they did? Let me put it like that.
Samjaza and the others who taught the mortals magic, Azazel taught them how to make weapons, and worse yet, how to use them. With this idea, it is believed that Azazel showed man how to hurt each other, how to wage conflict on each other, and how to kill each other, and instilled in man a sense for warfare. The magic given to mankind by the other Watchers was perhaps harmless, inconsequential even, but the crafting of swords, knives, shields, and breastplates that were taught by Azazel brought only pain and suffering.
And that's another thing. Growing up, right? Let me cam up for this. Growing up, I was told, I was talked about voodoo, about witchcraft, about magic, about dark magic, about good magic, about all that stuff, right? But to me, listen, mind you, when I saw the movie Matilda and I saw her trying to move the cup and all that stuff, and I'm like, yo, like, could I? I really tried it. I'm not gonna sit here and lie. I really tried it. I tried to move that cup thinking that I could move that cup. It never moved. So it's kind of like, how can I believe that this is real, right? When I have not seen it. My eyes cannot, my brain cannot comprehend it yet. And I'm gonna say yet, because what if it is? There's plenty of people out here that have said they've done voodoo and it's worked. There are plenty of people that said they have done witchcraft and it's worked. But me, myself personally, I don't know if it's real or not, for the simple fact, and it's crazy, right? Because I grew up them telling me, if you don't believe in it, it won't hit you. I don't know if it's because, that, but I don't think so. Like, I haven't seen nobody yet, like face to face, sit here and move a cup by just moving it through eyesight. I have not seen somebody, read somebody's mind yet. I haven't seen somebody do any type of magic powers, do any type of potions or anything that would sit here and, oh my God, this happened like this. Listen, I can't believe it until I see it. But that's just me. I don't know how y'all feel. But they say they taught mankind witchcraft. But then again, here we go. Science and witchcraft are kind of alike. And I can sit here and say, like, damn, it's a mystery to the earth. Could, mixing up these certain types of ingredients, could it really make up a potion? That I could kind of like believe in the potions and all that, because you can make a simulation of a volcano when you're making a project, right? You make this little volcano out of clay. You put the baking soda, you put the vinegar, or you could put the soda and some menthols in there. And you got a simulation of a volcano. But then again, that's a simulation. Yesterday we was talking about simulations, right? Questions. More questions arise on top of questions when we talk about this or we hear about this. You okay? What happened out there? It's hot. But let's keep watching the video.
You'll also notice that Azazel is responsible for man's mastery over the metals of the earth and the art of crafting them into bracelets and ornaments, objects that would be fought over or even idolized by mankind. It is these sorts of items in jewelry, ornaments, and costly stones that would inspire greed and envy, destructive sins that would corrupt man. The beautifying of the eyelids is another interesting aspect mentioned in the passage, and some have thought that this was in relation to makeup and cosmetics, and that Azazel taught the less beautiful women how to compete with those who were naturally blessed in the looks department.
Oh, I was confused. What is your opinion on this? I want to know. Shit. I was confused. I thought it had to do about makeup. Real shit.
Some have also said that this painting of the face was a deception, and that Azazel instructed the women to do this in an effort to entice men and make the world promiscuous. In any case, the Watchers' efforts to corrupt man were successful, as chapter 8 tells us, and there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray, and became corrupt in all their ways. The other Watchers are also named and shamed in this part of the chapter, where we are told Samjaza taught enchantments and root cuttings, Amaros the resolving of enchantments, Barak Kajal taught astrology,
Wow.
Kokoblel the constellations, Ezekiel, the knowledge of the clouds, racheal, the signs of the earth, Shamsiel, the signs of the sun, and Sariel, the course of the moon.
So these angels left mankind with a manual to learn and understand Mother Nature, to understand the earth that we live in. Why take these chapters out the Bible? Why remove this and not let mankind learn their own history? I'm just curious. I want to know.
Here we are given more insights as to what mankind was taught and how, in the eyes of God, his creation was corrupted. Mankind appears to have been given the keys to the universe during the Watcher's visit, and while some of these teachings might seem benign enough, the Book of Enoch reserves that this was not God's intention, and that the Watchers had superseded him, thus angering him beyond measure. Some might also say that with the Watchers teaching mankind about the signs of the earth, the sun, and the moon, as well as the constellations and the clouds, man gained independence from God. But in doing so, it can also be said that the Watchers invoked in man a thirst for understanding and a cultivation of an ambitious attitude that would set man off in seeking knowledge more than salvation. But the
So were we put in this world to seek knowledge, to survive? What were we put in reality in this world for? To amuse? What were we put in this world for? Is the biggest question. What were we meant to do? Because if the angels gave us the knowledge to figure out the world and how to survive, why was it a bad thing? I'm only being but nothing but neutral in this, right? See, the Catholics made the angels seem so they were just nothing but loyal servants to God except for Lucifer. But there were more than one angel that was not loyal to God.
The teachings of the Watchers would not be enough to fend off the rage of the Nephilim, as the creatures brought down devastation upon the earth. The landscape was battered, animals were slaughtered, men and women torn apart. Chapter 8 concludes by telling us, "And as men perished, they cried, and their cry went up to heaven." With these cries, the antics of the Watchers and the destruction of their offspring would become apparent to the archangels, those that were already preparing God's vengeance. But that's all we have time for on today's episode of the Book of Enoch. Next time, we'll be exploring how God responds to seeing what the Watchers have done on Earth, as well as a profound look at the vengeance of the archangels. If you've enjoyed today's video, let me know in the comments.
So shout out to that man for, putting that video out there and giving his version, because he kind of explains it real good and he breaks it down real good, y'all. Like, I've never really seen somebody break it down the way he has. I love it. It does give you a little understanding. Hold on 1 second. I'm trying to get this all the way back.